Hawks trade John Collins to the Jazz for Rudy Gay and a second round pick. Great for the Jazz. They get a really nice forward. For the Hawks, they clear up cap space and they get Rudy Gay, who, I'll be honest with you guys, follow the NBA pretty closely. Always forget that Rudy Gay still plays. Not gonna lie. Forgot that he played. It's one of those guys, great player historically, but like I forget that he exists sometimes. But hey, you know what? Now he's on the Hawks and he can, play on the bench, I guess, or do whatever he does.
Yeah, no, Rudy Gay is like turning on the NBA and watching a random Clippers game, be like, what the fuck is Rondo doing on the court? Here's like Rondo still plays. So it's like Rudy Gay. It's like, I remember when he played with the Grizzlies, and that seems like a long time ago. That was in the Tim Duncan, Tiago Splitter era when the Grizzlies were battling with the Spurs. Zach Randolph wanted his ring there. Didn't end up happening. But speaking of the Grizzlies, Rudy Gay, that's where I always think of him, and he was a baller there. But like for this is a salary move for the Hawks. I think John Collins, you're paying him a little too much for what the modern NBA is right now because he's not really an Aaron Gordon type of player. And the Hawks just need a star who can do more things than John Collins. You have DeJounte Murray. He actually showed up huge for them in the playoffs. However, John Collins really hit or miss. And then he's a big man, again, who can't shoot, but he's also not tall enough to be as dominant as Giannis or a Embiid in the East. And he can't really guard any of those guys. So they're probably looking to go a little bit bigger. Wouldn't be surprised to see Capella on the move and kind of bolster up that front court this year and maybe go out there and try and make a play for Chris Middleton or Fred VanVleet or Brook Lopez in your front court, because then you could go really big and play Capella and Lopez together because they can both shoot.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really nice move. And for the Jazz, I really like what they've done. Obviously last year they finally moved off of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And I would think they're in a much better position than the two teams that traded for him. I mean, for the Cavaliers, they're like a team that's going to be in the mix, kind of like how the Knicks are and the Nets and all these other teams.
Wall and Beal Wizards.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're going to be like a second round team. And then for the Timberwolves, God, you've already watched our show. You already know how much we hate the Timberwolves move and how terrible of a move that was and what a disaster that's been. But for the Jazz, here they are. They have Lauri Markkanen, who they got super cheap. They got John Collins for a guy who we forgot even existed in the NBA at this point. He's like a Taj Gibson as another example of one of those players.
Yeah, he does still play.
He still plays. He's God only knows where. He's
on the Knicks.
He's on the Knicks, exactly.
With Tom Thibodeau.
It's the guy who's been playing for a million years. Great. They get John Collins for dirt cheap. They got Walker Kessler super late in the draft last year. And they got a bunch of like really nice bench players. So really, I think next year they could win a playoff series depending who they match up with.
Yeah, it's all about who you match up with. And then I was really impressed with what I saw from Bogdanovich in the playoffs last year. And the fact that Trae Young told DeJounte Murray, he's like, hey, don't book any flights to Cancun yet because we're going back to Boston. Winning that game 5 when everyone wrote you off and you had every right. And then he hit that savage 3. That was just right down their throat. So if they get the right matchup in the first round, they did beat Miami in the play-in series. Do we forget that? Miami went to the finals and lost to the Hawks. So it's like the Hawks have some good personnel. And their coach is amazing. Quinn Snyder was in Utah. I think we're seeing how good of a coach he actually was with the fact that he was actually able to push that team to a second round series. But he got the best out of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And now that he's with Trae Young, I think you're gonna see a much better offense from the Hawks. And now he can put his fingerprints all over this team. But for Atlanta, Trae Young, watch that finals, tweet it out. We'll be there next year. I don't know how, but we'll figure out a way. Don't think they will be, but I think a few more years down the road of rebuilding, I could see it for sure.
Yeah, they got plenty of picks. Danny Ainge, the mastermind of getting just a shit ton of picks and building a really good rebuilding team.